it's Wednesday now. It is about 5 o'clock, and I've just really gotten home from work and everything, and I wanted to quickly update you guys with how things are going. So Sunday, I told you guys I finished Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up actually yesterday on Monday listening to the entirety of Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn on audio, and that was my October Random TBR book, but because I was able to access the audiobook, I was able to get to that one quicker than my other Random TBR books, and I gotta say, it was a little disappointing for a couple different reasons. The overall story was actually really good, but I felt like for a good part of it, there was just this kind of very odd feeling that I got from the main character, and there was a particular scene towards the end of the novel that left me very uncomfortable and I feel like was completely unnecessary to the story. If you don't know what Sharp Objects is about, it is essentially a story about a woman who returns to her hometown that is in Missouri, and essentially she's there because she's a journalist, and she finds out that these two little girls from her hometown were found murdered, and they're very young, like both under the age of 10, and so no one knows who killed them or why or how or anything like that, and so it's a huge mystery. So she goes back to her hometown to essentially investigate these murders as a journalist, and she basically delves up a bunch of very dark secrets about the town, and especially about her family that has been left dormant for years. And while she's there, she has to deal with a hypochondriac mother who essentially was very hard on her growing up, and she gets reconnected to her half-sister who she really never met, who's 13 now, and she's never really gotten to know her very well, and so she's trying to find a way to connect with her, but it's proving very difficult. And there's this whole story is really focused on the family part of the story, which is very important, but I can't really say why because it would spoil it. But there is a romantic plot that kind of pops up in the story that I really thought was unnecessary, because I feel like it distracted a lot from the overall point of the story, and it was more so romance by convenience, because the guy that she was having this romantic interaction with was the lead cop or lead detective on the case, who was brought to this town because the town was so small. They didn't have a strong enough police force to really investigate the crime, so he was brought from Kansas City all the way to this little town so that he could help them. I just felt the romance was really not necessary. And then there was a scene, like I said, that involved a adult and an 18-year-old male having sex, and the way that it kind of came about was very random. For one, it kind of just happened, and I didn't really expect it to happen, but at the same time, it felt very uncomfortable because this person that was in this moment knew that this guy was only 18, so it just felt very weird to me. It felt very much like she was taking advantage of the young man in this scene, and I just felt very uncomfortable with it. Although, yes, he may technically be an adult, there's a huge problem that I have with characters who kind of just randomly sleep with anybody, and especially if they're 10 plus years that person's senior and sleeping with them after some kind of big bender or something like that. There was no real reason for her to sleep with this individual, and I don't understand why it happened. It just kind of did, and I felt very uncomfortable the entire time. The overall ending, though, and the twist that comes at the end was very good. I did like a lot of the tension building that was built in the story, but there were just some choices I think that Gillian Flynn made as far as plot and some kind of story building things that I felt like weren't really necessary. And so I felt like I gave it like a 3 out of 5 stars, because it wasn't overall that bad, but there were some very questionable things that I feel like could have been removed. I read the entirety of that book on Monday while I was at work. I was listening to it on audio, and then I also today listened to the entirety of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is our group book, so I got 100 points for that. For Team Hufflepuff, as well as the page count points for that. So that was like 150 points basically. And so Hufflepuff at this point on day 7 is in 3rd place. We got a huge leap with Ravenclaw, because Ravenclaw has been just pumping out books like crazy, which is good for them, but holy crap, they have at this last time I checked, like an 800 almost point lead on Hufflepuff. So I'm hoping that, you know, the month will turn around since it's still very early in the month still. I hope that Hufflepuff can turn it around so that we can kind of come back on top here. Because I think that this was the case last time, was that Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were pretty neck and neck for a good part of the month, and then by the end of it we were able to swing it out and actually end up getting it. So I have not made any progress though as of today on the Birth of Venus. I am planning on getting through a large chunk of it today. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish it, but I think that tomorrow I should be able to, because I don't think we're really doing a whole lot tonight. Both Robert and I are not feeling the best, so I feel like I can just sit down and read a lot today and not have any issues, and then probably tomorrow be able to finish the book, which will make me very happy. It'll keep me on my reading schedule. Also today I got through the first almost third of Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter, which is actually turning out to be really interesting. I really like this so far. I've only gotten to like part 5 of 18, I think, and I really like it. I think it's going very, very well, and I'm very interested to see how this one goes because it's getting very, very intense very quickly. So I hope that I really like it. So as far as today, like I said, I do plan on getting through the Birth of Venus. I'm gonna sit though and upload my best of 2019 video and then edit quickly my worst of 2019 video and get my stuff kind of figured out with that, and I think I should be able to get that done though within the next hour, which will make me happy so that I can just sit and read for the rest of the night. And okay, so we're just gonna have to deal with this really weird glare that's going on, but hi guys, it is Thursday the 9th. It has been a very, very weird week. I have not done nearly as much reading as I wanted to. Today I did actually so far make a lot of progress in the Birth of Venus. I've read like probably close to 50 pages, I think, and that was because I had a very slow day at work. I didn't really have much to do until this afternoon. We got through a lot more Pieces of Her, but I stopped listening to it today so I could try to focus a little more on the Birth of Venus before picking it back up. I don't think I'm gonna finish this until probably this weekend because this is a really hard book to move through. It's just really written in a very old style. It's, you know, it's based in like ancient Italy, which is almost like ancient Greece in a way, but it's not exactly ancient. It's like late 15th century, early 16th century, like Michelangelo time kind of thing. But the story itself is actually really interesting so far. It's just a little hard to read because the language is so very, very different and very old. All it's focusing on, it really is about this girl named Alessandra, who is the daughter of a very wealthy merchant, and her family essentially takes in this guy who's a painter because he is working on a fresco in one of the churches, and he's basically been hired to paint. The younger Alessandra is also a massive artist. She has been painting and sketching for a very, very long time. She's only 14, on the cusp of 15, and it's a lot of basically about her having to deal with the fact that because she's a young woman, she's not really allowed to do a lot of stuff, and it's kind of her fighting against a lot of it and getting closer to this painter who she's not really supposed to interact with much because he's kind of lower class and everyone kind of thinks of him as an outsider because he came from this area where he was basically raised by monks in a church that spoke Latin. And so there's like a lot of outsider qualities to him, and she's drawn to him because of the fact that he's a massively great painter, and she wants to learn from him. I think there's a bit of a romance going on with this, and I think that the painter is like probably 18, almost 19 years old, so it's a little weird considering how young she is, but I would prefer him to be 18, 19 as opposed to like 30, 40 years old, you know? So it's a little weird. Like there's just a lot of things about it that I'm not like jiving with as much, I think, but that's because I'm so very stuck in my more modern sensibilities than I am with placing these characters in the actual time period that they are in. So what I think about it though so far is that it's pretty okay. It's not great by any means. I feel like I said, the language part of it is really the big hindrance for me. It feels like it takes longer because I'm trying to understand the scenes themselves. But once I kind of get through the scenes, I know exactly what's happened. It's just kind of like the language aspect of the way that the chapters are written is kind of different. It's just very different, and you kind of have to just keep reading it, and then the more you read it, the better, you know, the whole thing becomes, and it's easier to start actually like understanding what's happening. I just finished editing my vlog from last week, so I'm gonna upload that tonight when I get back from having dinner with Robert. I think that like I said, I'm not gonna be able to finish this tonight, but I can make some very, very good progress in it tonight after we get back, and then I'll probably finish it this weekend and then pick up Monstress Volume 1, which I can fly through in like a couple hours because it's a graphic novel, and then probably end up actually completing The Wicked Will Rise probably either Saturday or Sunday, because that's a very short book too. Like that's like only 200 and some pages. The Dorothy Must Die series is actually pretty short. I think the longest book in general is the first one. I think that's the actual longest book in the series, and the rest of them are like less than 300 pages. So I probably could crank out both Monstress Volume 1 and The Wicked Will Rise in the same day. More than likely it'll be Sunday because Saturday is going to be very, very busy. Robert and I are going to be checking out 2 different venues back in our hometown for our wedding, and we also have to make a decision on which place we want to go to, because I have visited one already that I really liked, but we have 2 other venues we want to check out, and we have to make a decision Saturday because we need to be able to get a place figured out like as soon as possible, since we're getting married in October. And then I think probably to round out the week, what I plan on doing is starting Rebels and Traitors by Lindsay Davis, which will, after I finish The Wicked Will Rise, will be the next Random TBR book that I have to get through. That's a big one though. Like that's over 700 pages, almost 800 pages. So I do not know. I highly doubt I'm gonna finish that until probably sometime in the beginning of next week. So my reading schedule is a little off, but it's not too off, which is okay. Like I'm okay with that. And some of the things I've been doing, I've kind of been like switching out for stuff. Like I decided to like put off listening to pieces of her a little bit to be able to focus more on this. So it's workable. It's just, you know, not the reading schedule I had set up, but it's, you know, it's not too difficult to kind of just easily rearrange stuff, thank God, because I'm not too far behind. Hey guys, so it's Friday now. It is going on 5 o'clock and I've just gotten home. Currently I'm uploading my reading vlog that I edited yesterday, and today I have made a little bit more progress with The Birth of Venus. Yesterday I ended up reading about 87 pages or so of the book, and then today so far I've gotten through another 24, 25, something like that while I was at work. And so I'm really enjoying it a lot. I'm over 100 pages in at this point, and it's actually pretty decent. It's just, I think, like I said yesterday, the language is really the hardest aspect for me when it comes to reading it. So it's just taking a little bit to get into, but I'm honestly more interested in that, and I keep going back to that as the one I want to read beside Pieces of Her. I did listen to a little bit more of that today too. I listened to like almost an hour and a half of that so far, which was essentially like one full chapter, and it's really, really good. It's just, for some reason, I'm more interested in reading The Birth of Venus. Today, it's going to be kind of weird because Robert and I are leaving here around 7, but currently the weather outside is absolutely miserable. It is super foggy. It basically looks like it's going to rain, but it's not. It's just super, super foggy, and tonight we're supposed to get rain, and then it's supposed to freeze because it's January, so the temperatures are going to drop like ridiculously, and tomorrow we're supposed to have about 2 inches worth of ice. So that's going to suck because tomorrow Robert and I are supposed to go see 2 different venues for our wedding, and we are a little worried that we're not going to be able to get to them because one of them is like more in town, but the other one, it's like, it's still in town, but it's on like a country driveway, so ice and country do not mix very well. It is not a fun time. So my hope is that it's going to be okay enough for us to be able to drive out tomorrow for both of these venue things, because otherwise it kind of is going to be a waste of a trip, other than really to see my mom. I mean, obviously that's a great time and I get to do laundry there, no problem. It's just kind of, we were supposed to be there for other reasons. My anxiety is getting a little excessive because of all this, because I hate that the weather does not want to cooperate with me ever. And this entire week I've been battling headaches off and on because of the temperature drops and then temperature rises that happen. So it's been a very bad week for me in terms of my health, and I just hate this time of year. And what sucks even more is that this is not typical January weather for Michigan. Like usually we get a lot of ice and snow in January. Like this time last year when I had first graduated from the college I went to, it was completely covered in snow, the entire state, and there was ice everywhere. There was none of this 40-degree weather for 3 days in a row and then dropping to 20 degrees. Like, that's something that happens, like, in the spring. This is not stuff that happens in January of all times. So global warming for you, everybody. Hey guys, so it's Sunday and Robert and I have returned home from my parents' house. We're actually cleaning up the office right now because we decided to create a little reading nook for me in the office. So I do have my bookshelf and stuff set up like in the office, which you guys see all the time in my videos, but we decided that we actually wanted to create me a little reading spot because I don't really have a space to sit and read, because I like to sit and read in the living room, but a lot of times if Robert and I are sitting together in the living room, he likes to like watch TV or play video games, and so it's not a really conducive area for me to sit and read. And I figured if I'm gonna do something while reading and be with him while he may be playing video games on his computer, it'd be a great way to kind of do things at the same time. So I got this beanbag chair, which is really nice. It's gonna give me some ability to like sit and relax and feel like I'm in a comfortable position to read. And we have got this set of two little nightstand things or end tables that I think I'm going to place one here in front of me and then one on this other side in this empty space here next to this bin. And yeah, it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited because I think one of them I'm going to have like my coloring books and stuff sitting there. So like when I listen to audiobooks, I can sit here and color. And on that one, or maybe the other one, depending, I have a small stack of some of the books I have on my current TBR. Before I get started, I'm going to quickly update you guys with my reading progress. So I ended up actually DNFing The Birth of Venus by Sarah Dunant because I was finding it very, very hard to continue. The big problem I had with it is that while I was enjoying the overall story of what was going on, I felt that the language was making it very hard to stay focused in the story. And I like, you know, a plot, I like characters and all that, but if the language of a story is not jiving with me and making it harder for me to enjoy the plot or the characters, I feel like it's not worth my time. So that's kind of the thing that I did with The Birth of Venus, is I DNF'd it because I felt like I couldn't really connect with the language so well that I could understand the entire story. I got the general premise of it and the general premise of the characters that are involved, but not anything concrete enough to where I felt comfortable continuing with it. So I did DNF it, but I do get 5 points for the Housecupathon for at least attempting to try it. And I had gotten over 100 pages into it, which is at least a quarter of the way, which typically I like to go about 10% of a way through a book before I make a decision to DNF it or not. But what I'm gonna do now, like I said, is I'm gonna get these end tables made, which shouldn't take too long since it's not really requiring a toolbox of any kind. And I think Robert and I are just gonna kind of continue cleaning up the office a little bit, like run the vacuum and stuff. And we've got a couple friends coming over here in a little while that we're going to catch up with that we haven't seen in a few weeks since the holidays. So it's going to be a very interesting night. And then tonight I do plan on getting through Monstress Volume 1 in its entirety because it won't take me too long to read that graphic novel. And then probably getting through, if not completely finishing, The Wicked Will Rise by Danielle Page, which are my next two Random TBR books to try to complete. And I wanted to try to get them done by this weekend and then try to get through some of Rebels and Traitors at the beginning of this coming week. So I think I'm getting pretty good back on my reading schedule for the most part, but I might have to adjust it slightly since I'm going to be getting to Rebels and Traitors a little later than I had expected. But without further ado, let's show you guys how creating this space is going to be. So it is Sunday night. I think it's going on about 9 o'clock by now, and the evening has been really, really eventful. I had a really good day today. It's honestly been a very, very good weekend. So as you guys saw, we got the whole area set up here for my reading nook, which was so awesome. Probably like the best thing about today was creating that. And then our friends Ryan and Jimmy came over because we were exchanging late Christmas gifts, and I read the entirety of Monstress Volume 1 Awakening, which I thought was pretty good. I actually liked it a lot. This artwork is absolutely beautiful. I really like it a lot because it's got a very steampunky look to it, with a lot of like the golds and blacks and things of that nature that are played into the story, but it also has a lot of like very ancient kind of Egyptian almost feels to it in terms of talking about like the ancients that are involved with the story, and it just seems really interesting. Like this seems to be set in like a futuristic area, but it also has a lot of fantasy feels to it if you're a huge fan of fantasy. I will say this is an adult graphic novel. There is a lot of blood and gore in this. There's not really a lot of nudity. Like there is like a couple spots where there are some naked people, but you don't really see massive features of any kind. And if you're not familiar with the Monstress story, the best way I can try to describe it, because it was a little confusing until I got probably about halfway through it, is that the main character is named Micah or Micah, something along those lines. And she is what's called an arcanist, where essentially she is born with some kind of power. And she has a very dark and mysterious history that she only has kind of small remnants of knowledge about, because it seems like after this huge war had happened that she somehow was involved with, because she was like in it, or she experienced some things while the war was happening. There were some things that happened that caused her to lose some memory of what happened, but essentially led her to be with this group of people where she decided to try to find out more about where exactly she came from. And there's basically this huge war going on between what is called the Federation, which are basically all humans and people who do not have magical abilities, and the Arcanists, who are the people that do have abilities. The Arcanists usually, if they are captured by the Federation, are put into slavery and usually killed off, because their powers are able to be used for very nefarious purposes by the Federation. This is very much, I think, a huge story that is dedicated to the idea of hatred. And when you look at the back of the story, where Majorie Liu, the writer of Monstress, was discussing some of the reasons why she wrote Monstress, what she delves into is actually some very personal history of her family. Majorie Liu is Chinese American, and her family, specifically her grandparents, had experienced some majorly devastating events that had happened during World War II specifically. And while Marjorie herself did not understand that and did not experience those things, the imagining of what her grandparents had gone through and the amount of hatred that is still very prevalent in today's society against people that are not considered, Western American, in like an American setting, there's a lot of hatred still going around, where there's a lot of racism still, there's a lot of bigotry and hatred towards minority groups, and it's kind of a continuous cycle. And so Marjorie stated in the back of this book that was what she wanted to write on, was this amount of bigotry, but writing on a character who, despite all of that, despite having to deal with so much nonsense when it comes to who she is and the fact that she's able to have these powers, that she's able to overcome it and able to really grow as an individual as she's learning more about who she is and where she comes from and what it is exactly she's destined to do, despite the fact that what that is dangerous to a lot of people, even though the only reason it's dangerous is because they have so much hatred for this other group of people, and they don't want and are not willing to understand anything about them. So this is very much a very strong commentary on those things, though that kind of idea is very prevalent throughout this entire story. I really liked this a lot. I felt like the story was really, really interesting, and I'm very excited to see how the other two volumes that I have of this have gone, because I know that volume 3 is the most recent that's come out. I'm not sure when volume 4 comes out, but I hope that it's soon, because I feel like that once I really get into this graphic novel series, I'm gonna fly through it. I felt like I flew through this in like a good couple hours. It was honestly very intriguing. I really like Meika as a character. The only thing I will say, and it was pretty much the reason I only gave this a 4 out of 5 stars as opposed to a 5, is that I felt like there were a lot of points where transitions between people within the story were a little choppy, and I felt like there were some really weird breaks that had gone on between the perspectives. I felt like there would be one scene happening with one set of characters, which was fine. It was okay. I liked it. But the transition between that scene and the next scene with a different set of characters was very choppy. But regardless of that, the story itself was really great, because there's a lot of different perspectives going on within this. There's a lot of different ideas that are going on. And I will say, I feel like some of the storyline in terms of what exactly happened to Meika leading up to who she is now is still a little unclear. But I think that's because there's going to be much more of that developed in volumes 2 and 3, because we've only really scratched the surface in this first volume of who Meika is and what exactly she is. Like, you get a pretty good idea of what she's supposed to be, like what kind of arcana she is, but her backstory is a little fuzzy. But I think that's because we're supposed to get that more developed as the volumes go on, which is fine with me. I'm just think that for the first volume, it's a little unclear in some parts. So that is it for me for this week. I know there wasn't a whole lot, again, like with last week with content-wise, but I wanted to try to add a little more with building the Nook, because this was very much a last-minute thing. We decided to do this today, and so I hope that this was enjoyable nonetheless. But my goal for this coming week is to get through now The Wicked Will Rise by Daniel Page. I am a little bit behind on my reading schedule, but not by much. So I think that I should be able to get pretty much caught up for the most part. Maybe I have to rework it a little bit, but it's not too bad. Like, it's not really that, far behind that I feel like I'm stressing out. And especially with how this weekend's gone, honestly, my stress level has gone from like a 10 to like a 6. Because there's still a lot of stuff I have to stress out about and everything, but I feel like a huge weight's been lifted off my shoulders because of this weekend with getting a venue set up for my wedding. So I feel like a lot of my stress has been alleviated. This is, though, the first one, other than finishing up Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. That audiobook I should be able to finish tomorrow. So once I finish The Wicked Will Rise, the next book that I have on my random TBR list as I go through them is Rebels and Traitors by Lindsay Davis. All I know about this one is I think it has something to do with pirates in the English Civil War. So I don't really know. It's very, very big. It's a very big historical fiction. This one's like almost 800 pages, I think. Yeah, 742 pages. So this one will definitely take me some time. And if I'm lucky, I may be able to get to A Shadow Bright and Burning, because I did finish Sharp Objects, which was my October TBR pick. This was not, Rebels and Traitors is my November TBR pick, and A Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Cluess was my December one. So my thought is that I can get to A Shadow Bright and Burning probably by the end of next week, get through that one, and then get to my next random TBR book for January, which was Something Strange and Deadly by Susan Dennard. That's what it was, because it was another Kindle book I have. So I think I could get through this by the end of the week, maybe get through all of A Shadow Bright and Burning, and then probably by the beginning of next week get to Something Strange and Deadly, and then continue also with my HouseCupathon TBR that I have, and hopefully get through the rest of my book. But anyway, that is all I will say for now. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this vlog. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up, and let me know how you guys are doing in the HouseCupathon if you are participating in it. If you have not joined the HouseCupathon yet and would still like to, you still have time. We are constantly letting people come in and join whenever they like. So you can go ahead and click the link in my description down below, where we have our Discord set up, and you can go follow our Twitter as well and join in on the fun, because it is a really fun time. And I feel like everyone's having a fantastic run. It's definitely becoming a bigger success than I think we ever thought it could be, because people are having such a great time, and I'm just having a really, really good time seeing everyone being so happy and loving the stuff they're reading and joining in on the Discord sprints and everything. So if you haven't already and you'd like to be, hit the button down below to subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.